Something brought you here today, not the thumbnail, not the title, not the algorithm that decided this was something you needed to see. Something older than all of that. Something that has been operating beneath the surface of your ordinary life for a while now. Quietly, patiently, arranging small things in your direction without announcement, without asking whether you were ready. And here you are. So before we go any further, I need you to do something that might feel strange. I need you to stop treating this like content, because what I'm about to say to you is not content. It is not information designed to be consumed and filed away and forgotten before the next thing loads. It is a mirror, and mirrors only work if you are willing to stand in front of them. You have been carrying something lately that does not have a clean name. Not depression, not anxiety, not the kind of thing that earns you a diagnosis or a support group, or the specific social permission that comes from suffering in a way other people can recognize and categorize. Something quieter than all of that, a tiredness that lives beneath your functioning, a weight that sits just behind your sternum in the small pauses between one obligation and the next. In the mornings before the day starts and the performance begins. In the moments late at night when the distractions have run out and there is just you and the honest truth of where you are right now. You have gotten skilled at carrying it invisibly. People around you would be surprised if they knew, because from the outside you look fine. You function, you show up, you do what needs doing and say what needs saying, and hold together the parts of your life that require holding together. But something underneath all of that has been asking a question you have not had the quiet to answer properly. Is this it? Not dramatically, not in the way of someone in crisis, just a quiet, persistent wondering whether the life you are actually living has fully caught up to the life you know somewhere underneath everything that you are supposed to be living. Carl Jung called this the call of the self, not the ego's ambitions, not the social programming about what success is supposed to look like. The self, the organizing center of the psyche, the deepest intelligence of your interior life that moves toward wholeness with a precision that does not require your permission and does not wait for your convenience. And when the self calls, it does not use words. It uses this, the specific restlessness that no accomplishment fully quiets. The recurring feeling of being on the edge of something without being able to see what it is. The persistent sense that something in your life is not yet fully real, not yet fully yours. That is not failure. That is the psyche doing what it was built to do, moving toward what is next. Let me tell you what I think has been happening to you, and I want you to notice as I say this whether any of it lands somewhere specific, not intellectually, somewhere in the body. You are someone who feels things at a depth that most people around you do not fully access. This is not a diagnosis. It is not a label. It is a description of a psychological reality that Jung documented across decades of clinical work. Some people process the world primarily through thought. You process it through feeling. Not in the superficial sense, not in the sense of being emotional or reactive or difficult to be around, in the sense that your nervous system receives information about people and rooms and situations through channels that most people's nervous systems have been trained to ignore. You knew when something was wrong before it was said. You felt the shift in a relationship before it was named. You absorbed the emotional weight of spaces you walked into and carried it as though it was your own. You were the person other people reached for when they needed to feel less alone, and you gave that willingly, generously, because it felt like the truest thing you knew how to do. But here is what nobody told you about the cost of that. The person who carries everyone else's interior world alongside their own eventually loses track of which feelings belong to them. The person who is always available for other people's pain rarely creates the space to fully process their own. The person who is most deeply connected to how other people feel can spend years being genuinely disconnected from what they themselves actually need. And the tiredness you are carrying right now, the one beneath the functioning, beneath the showing up, beneath the version of yourself that the world sees and calls fine, that tiredness is not weakness. It is the accumulated cost of giving from a depth that was never properly replenished. And somewhere in your body, I think you already knew that. Jung said something that I want you to sit with. He said that the most dangerous thing a person can do psychologically is to continue being who they have always been when life is asking them to become something more. Not more capable, not more impressive, not more useful to the people around them, more themselves. And the reason this is dangerous is not because becoming yourself is inherently difficult. It is because the version of yourself that other people have come to depend on does not always survive the becoming. The relationships built around your endless availability change. The dynamics sustained by your willingness to absorb what others could not carry shift. The identity you constructed around being the one who understands, the one who stays, the one who does not need much in return, has to be released, and releasing it feels like loss even when it is liberation. Jung called this process individuation, the long and often lonely journey of separating who you actually are from who you have been performing for the benefit of environments that needed something specific from you. And individuation almost always arrives preceded by a period that feels like stagnation. A season where the old structures are dissolving and the new ones have not yet formed. A time that looks from the outside like nothing is happening, but from the inside feels like being caught between two worlds, unable to go back to who you were, not yet fully arrived at who you are becoming. That in-between is where I think you are living right now. And I want to say something about it that does not get said enough. The in-between is not a mistake. The in-between is not evidence that you are behind where you should be, or that something went wrong, or that the life you are trying to build is further away than it should be by now. The in-between is the work. It is the most important and least acknowledged part of the entire process, because the new self, the integrated one, the sovereign one, the one that is no longer organized around other people's needs at the expense of its own truth, cannot be rushed into existence. It has to be grown in the quiet, in the discomfort, in the specific pressure of a season that asks more of you than any previous season has. And you are in the middle of that growth right now, even when it does not feel like growth, especially when it does not feel like growth. I want to talk about the person you have been thinking about. You know who I mean, not because I know your specific situation, but because you are reading this and something in you immediately went somewhere specific when I said that. A person, a relationship, something unresolved, something that lives in a particular part of your interior world that you do not always have full access to, but that opens sometimes without warning. In a quiet moment, when something small in the world around you unexpectedly carries the specific weight of them. I want to say something about that person that I need you to hear carefully. Your healing cannot be organized around them, not because they do not matter, not because what happened between you was not real or significant or worth the weight you have been giving it, but because Jung understood something about the psychology of waiting that most people never fully reckon with. When you organize your psychological development around another person's timeline, around whether they will return, whether they will change, whether they will eventually become the version of themselves that the connection you shared deserved, you put your own becoming on hold, and the self, that deep organizing intelligence that has been calling you towards something more real, more whole, more fully yours, cannot complete its work in a psyche that is parked in someone else's story. It needs the center of your attention, not because you are more important than love, but because the version of you that is capable of the love you are looking for can only be built by you, in the work that nobody sees, in the mornings when you choose yourself even though it is harder than the alternative, in the moments when you feel the pull toward the old patterns and you stay with the discomfort of not following it, in the quiet accumulation of small decisions that are slowly building something inside you that no one else can build for you. That work is not in competition with love. It is the preparation for it. The real kind. The kind that does not require you to disappear inside it to feel its presence. The kind that is not threatened by your wholeness, but built for it. Jung spent his career documenting what happens to people who finally stop postponing their own development. And what he found was not what most people expect. He found that they did not become harder, they became more real. They did not become less loving. They became capable of a quality of love they had never previously had access to, because they were finally giving it from a self that was actually present, not from the performance of a self, not from the adaptive version that had learned to give in order to be kept. From the actual interior life of a person who had done the work of becoming genuinely themselves, and that quality of presence, that specific realness of someone who has stopped performing and started actually being, is not something you can manufacture. It is not something you can accelerate. It is something that emerges on its own schedule, in its own season, in a life that has been tended the way you have been tending yours, in the mornings when you showed up anyway, in the nights when you stayed with something difficult instead of running from it, in the quiet, persistent choice to keep going when keeping going offered no visible reward. You have been doing that work. longer than you have given yourself credit for, and it has been building something that is not yet fully visible from where you are standing right now. But that is closer to being complete than you currently believe. There is a specific part of you I want to speak to before this ends. The part that is afraid, not the part that is strong. That part is managing. That part has carried you this far and will continue to carry you further. The part that is afraid, the part that wonders in the honest hours whether you have been hoping for something that is not coming. Whether the depth of what you feel has made you a person who gives too much and receives too little, and whether that is simply who you are, and whether who you are is the problem. I want to speak directly to that part, and I want to say this as clearly as I know how to say it. The depth of what you feel is not the problem. It has never been the problem. The depth of what you feel is the most extraordinary thing about you. And the only thing that would genuinely be a mistake right now, the only one, is deciding that it is a liability. Because it is not. It is the specific quality of your interior life that makes real connection not just possible but inevitable. When it finds the right ground, and the right ground is not something you wait for. It is something you build, one honest morning at a time, one choice made in the quiet when no one is watching at a time, one small act of faithfulness to your own becoming at a time. You are building it right now. You have been building it for a while. And what you are building is not just a better version of the self that has always been here. It is the self that has been waiting inside the one that always showed up for everyone else. Finally, after everything, getting its turn. Jung called this the emergence of the sovereign self, and he said that it does not arrive with announcement. It arrives in a morning that feels slightly different from the one before. A moment of stillness that contains something new. A breath that releases something you did not realize you had still been holding. And then another morning, and another choice, and slowly, without your full awareness, without dramatic ceremony, the life that has been quietly assembling itself in the spaces between your efforts begins to become visible. And one day you will look back at this season, this specific uncomfortable in-between that has felt like nothing is happening, and you will understand what it was. Not the season where you were stuck, the season where everything that comes next was being built. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not someone whose depth is a burden rather than a gift. You are someone in the middle of the most important work of your life, and the work is almost done. Stay with it. Stay with yourself. What is coming already knows where to find you. If something in this landed somewhere real, somewhere specific and quiet and true, I want to know about it. Tell me in the comments what hit. Tell me where you are right now, not the fine version, the real one. This space is for that. And subscribe, because what is coming next is for the person who is finally ready to stop waiting for their life to begin and start recognizing that it already has.